Hi everyone, I'm going to go over the digestive system and integument system hit list for Lab Unit 4. First of all, let me get my controls going here. There we go, so I can see them. So the first thing I want to go over is this region here is the nasopharynx. And then this region here is the oropharynx. And then from this region here is the laryngopharynx. This structure here is the uvula, which is part of the soft palate. And then all of this region here is the hard palate. Okay. Pharyngeal tonsils. Your pharyngeal tonsil is right here. And this tonsil is your palatine tonsil. Of course, there's also a tonsil that would be on the back of your tongue. So I'll just circle it here and say lingual tonsil. And then there would be another tonsil right here called the tubal tonsil. And we'll see these tonsils again in the nasopharynx when we go over your respiratory system. Okay, so take a moment to write all that down because I'm going to erase everything so I can continue to use this model to identify other structures that I see here. So take some time. Maybe I'll just do this. There we go. That way I don't have to erase anything. I'm a genius. So this area here that I'm going to highlight in yellow, that is just behind your lips, but in front of your teeth, is called the vestibule. And when it comes to the labia actually refers to your lips. And if you, I don't have a model to show you in this PowerPoint, but if you remember from our digestive system discussion, you have a labial frenulum and you have a lingual frenulum. If you open your mouth and invert your lip, you could see the frenulum, the piece of tissue that connects your lip to your gums. So that is the labial frenulum. We do have a model that shows that, but I don't have it included here in this PowerPoint at this moment. And then if you lift up your tongue, you can see the piece of tissue that connects your tongue to the underside of your oral cavity. Okay, so then what else do I have here that I can show you? I showed you pharyngeal tonsils, which are also called your adenoid, your palatine, your tubal. Your lingual tonsil, again, would be on the back of the tongue, as I already showed you on the previous slide. Let's see. I showed you. Okay, so now let's move on to our salivary glands and the ducts. So here is your parotid gland. Here's your submandibular. And here's your sublingual. And the green ducts that you are seeing here, so obviously that is going to be the parotid duct, also known as Stenson's duct. You can see that it goes from the parotid gland into just behind your molars, your upper molars. And then down here, you can see the submandibular duct or Wharton's duct. Okay, and then your teeth. Let's use this model to go over your teeth. Again, here's the parotid gland. And then that would be your parotid duct. Of course, you have a row of upper teeth and a row of lower teeth. And you have incisors, canines. So you have 4 incisors. You have 2 on each side. And then you have canines. You have so what do I mean by 2 on each side? So here are, just on the right side of the person for this model, you see your 2 incisors. Then here is your 1 canine on the right side. You would have 1 on the left side. Then you have 2 premolars. And then you would have 3 molars, with the last one, of course, being considered your, quote, wisdom tooth. Okay. So now I believe I've covered everything on your hit list for the mouth and the pharynx. I'm going to keep moving on. So this part right here would be the distal region of the esophagus. And I thought I had another slide for the esophagus, so hold on, let me take care of that. Yes, I do. So let me just copy that and put it on our copy. Okay, just bear with me. Here we go. There we go. So here's your esophagus. And all of this region, of course, anterior to it would be the trachea, and we'll see that again when we go over our respiratory system portion of our hit list. And then here is the stomach. So I'll just use this model real quickly to go over large structures. Here's the spleen. Here's the liver and the gallbladder. The small intestine has 2 parts. The part that is closest to the stomach is called the duodenum. And then we have the jejunum and ileum. So up here we would tag the jejunum. And then anything close to the beginning of the large intestine, say down there, would be the ileum. And then the large intestine has this pouch called the cecum. And then it has the ascending colon. Again, all of this is still part of the large intestine. This is the transverse colon, still part of the large intestine. And here is the descending colon. And then we had the sigmoid colon, which is S-shaped. And then we have the rectum. And then lastly, the anus. Okay. So let's go to the stomach now. Again, we see the esophagus coming in. And where the esophagus actually breaks through the diaphragm, that space through the diaphragm would be called the esophageal hiatus. And let me just check something. No, I don't have that here. Let me just quickly check a different model and see if I can show you that esophageal hiatus. Maybe this one. Yep, I can. So on this model that you're going to see in our respiratory system, you can see the esophagus. Again, this model you're going to see in the respiratory system lab hit list discussion. And you can see where this is the diaphragm right here. And you can see that the esophagus is breaking through it. There's an actual hole through the diaphragm. So that would be the esophageal hiatus. And again, oh, even better, here is another model that you've seen before. Again, you can see the diaphragm. All of this is the diaphragm. And you can see the hole that the esophagus is coming through. And that hole through the diaphragm is the esophageal hiatus. So we might say to you, name this hole that the esophagus passes through. Okay, going back to our GI integument PowerPoint. I already told you that this is the stomach, and this region up here, this region, so if we say name this region of the stomach, this is the cardia, also known as the cardiac region, and that's what we have on your hit list. Then this entire portion here, this entire region is called the body, also known as the corpus. Then this region here would be the pyloric region, also known as the pylorus. This part right here that I will outline in yellow, this thickened portion here, is the pyloric sphincter. All of these macroscopic folds that you are seeing that I'm tracing over right now are called rugae. And their purpose is to increase the surface area of the stomach, and this will allow for more surface area for contact of the digestive enzymes like pepsin, which we find there, and hydrochloric acid, which helps denature proteins. So protein digestion begins in the stomach. This curve here, this curve is called the lesser curvature. And this bigger curve here is called the greater curvature. Okay, and then of course there are muscular layers. So again, here's our esophagus. Everything is labeled for you. I forgot to tell you that this domed portion here is the fundus. Domed region is the fundus. Showed you the cardia region or cardiac region. The pyloric sphincter, I said, was that region here towards the distal region of the pylorus. And I told you about rugae. and the body. Well, there are 3 different layers of the stomach. Most of the GI tract only has 2 muscularis externa layers. The stomach has 3, so you should know from your digestive system that there is an internal circular layer and then an external longitudinal layer. Well, the stomach also has an oblique layer. And we don't ask you to identify the different layers of the stomach, but you should know that there are 3. And just in case there's ever a question about it for extra credit, the most internal layer is the oblique. And then we have the middle layer, which is the circular layer. And then we have the last layer, which is longitudinal. It is the most superficial. All right, so let me just pull up on another screen a picture for you to look at for that. Let's pull this one up. And let's see if I can find the model of it. Okay, so you can clearly see over here the oblique layer is the internal layer, and the longitudinal layer is the outer layer. Here is a different model. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of the model that I just showed you. Anyway, I think that works for us. I'm not going to waste too much time on that. But again, let me erase so you can see it. You can see these fibers are going around the body of the stomach, so that's the circular. And then if I erase this, you can see these fibers up here on top are kind of going this way. There we go, like that. All right. Big helicopter going by. All right, so what is the function of the muscular layers? Well, what is the function of muscle in the first place? Obviously, to provide contraction. And when it comes to the stomach, it provides gut motility in the stomach, which means churning to kind of mix the contents with the pepsin and hydrochloric acid. There can also be retropulsion, sort of where the stomach kind of flips your contents, sort of like flipping a pancake if you were cooking one. And retropulsion is also necessary for the beginning of vomiting, where you're flipping the contents up back towards the esophagus. So it's basically gut motility. All right, now we're moving on to this model where we can again see the spleen, which is discussed in your lymphatic system lecture. This cobblestone looking structure is the pancreas. And it has this region here tucked into the duodenum. So here's the duodenum. Duodenum means 12 fingers. It's approximately 12 fingers worth of length. It's the first part, duodenum, of your small intestine. And this part of the pancreas that kind of tucks into it is called the head. And then this region here is the body. And then this part out here by the spleen is the tail. And we can see the kidney behind here, just to give us some orientation, and the adrenal gland. Here is the gallbladder. Now you might be noticing these macroscopic folds that go in a circular fashion. You're only seeing half of the circle because they cut open the duodenum, but those are called plicae circularis. And their purpose is to help increase the surface area of your small intestine. So they're found throughout the small intestine. And in your lecture material, you learned that there are 3 modifications of the small intestine that help increase the surface area. They are the plicae circularis, the villi, and microvilli. So in your lab hit list, it asks you the function of these 3 structures, and the answer is the same for all 3. Increases the surface area of the small intestine. Now, this structure here that you're seeing in white that kind of looks like a herringbone, like a fish bone, well, that long white structure is the pancreatic duct. And I'm going to erase some of these lines so we can see it. You can see the pancreatic duct actually empties into the duodenum. The pancreatic duct, before it empties into the duodenum, actually combines with the common bile duct. You can see that here in green. Here, common bile duct and the pancreatic duct are going to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And then that hepatopancreatic ampulla dumps into the duodenum, and you can see that opening there. There is also a minor pancreatic duct shown here, but that's not on your hit list, but there is one. Okay. Let's see. Here is an up-close picture of we can see a portion of the duodenum right here. And then all of this would be the jejunum. And then this part of the small intestine that leads up to the large intestine is called the ileum. And this valve right here that I will highlight in yellow is the iliocecal valve. It is a one-way valve. So before it, we have chyme, which is basically the food you ate mixed with all your digestive enzymes. And then once the chyme passes through the iliocecal valve into the cecum, it's now feces. And again, this pouch is the cecum. And here is the appendix. Okay. Right, I'm just going through the hit list to make sure I'm getting everything. This portion of the large intestine is the ascending colon. And then we have the transverse colon. Then we have the descending. And then we have, it's not on your hit list, but it should be, this S-shaped part. S, it's kind of an S on its side. And that's the sigmoid colon. These pouches that you see of the large intestine, these pouches are called haustra. It's not on your hit list, but it should be. And this ribbon right here, this ribbon in white that I'm tracing over with my green pen, is a band of smooth muscle called, and it's all along, called the teni coli. Teni coli. And it's smooth muscle, and when it is contracted, which it is a lot of the time, that's what causes the puckering of the large intestine that forms the haustra, which is why your fecal material looks bumpy. It's because of the haustra pouches. Now, the function of the large intestine is basically to reabsorb more water that you've ingested with your diet. It also is a site of bacteria where we can have vitamin B12 synthesis, and also vitamin K is also an important function, or what we see being made here as well. The function of the large intestine, if you want to create a more extensive list, you can go see your digestive system lecture material. Oh, sigmoid colon is on your hit list. I'm seeing that now. Well, that's good. I showed you the appendix, and then rectum. Let me go over to this slide now. So here is the sigmoid colon, this region, and then we have the rectum shown here, and then the last part of it is the anus. And I already showed you the teni coli, and haustra. Again, put haustra on your hit list. I did not make this slide. I'm just checking it. We have teni coli spelled differently in your hit list. Jejunum, and then, like I said, the last part here is the ileum. And then this valve right here is the iliocecal valve. And just because the spelling is bothering me, so anytime you see A-E together, it makes the sound E. The letter I also makes the sound E, so this would be teni coli. That's strange. I know anatomy language is strange. Okay. The abdominal cavity, it says that we're going to ask you about parietal peritoneum and visceral peritoneum. We could tag parietal peritoneum on the cat, but the cat is not on this semester's hit list. So this video was made for fall 2020. Because of COVID, we weren't able to do cat dissections because we weren't face to face. But you should know that the parietal peritoneum would be just underneath the abdominal muscles, and visceral peritoneum would be tightly adherent to these organs that you're seeing, like the jejunum. So you should just be aware of what peritoneum is. So here's a flat model of part of your digestive tract. Here again is the spleen. Let's spell that right. And you're seeing the cut, just a portion of the cut open stomach with rugae. We could see the rugae. And here we're seeing, all along here, we're seeing the duodenum. With the plicae circularis, which helps increase the surface area. And here we see the liver, of course, and the gallbladder. And here it's a better model because you can actually see the pancreatic duct merging with the common bile duct. And then it forms this region here called the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And if we go back up to your hit list, I'll do the 4 lobes of the liver in just a moment because this model does not really show them well. And same with the falciform ligament. But the duct system, so here we have the right hepatic duct. I'm just going to abbreviate it. And there's a little portion of the left hepatic duct. Then that part where they merge, forms the common hepatic duct, which joins this structure coming off the gallbladder called the cystic duct. And then the cystic duct plus the common hepatic duct makes the common bile duct. And some books just call it the bile duct. Okay, so that common, and I'm going to put that in abbreviations, parentheses, not abbreviations, parentheses. So the right hepatic duct and left hepatic duct merge to form the common hepatic duct, which merges with the cystic duct to create the bile duct, also known as the common bile duct, which in turn merges with the pancreatic duct to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And the function of this duct system is to allow bile is made by the liver. Bile drips out of the right and left hepatic ducts, drips into the common hepatic duct, and when the smooth muscle of the hepatopancreatic ampulla is contracted and closed, all of the bile will back up through the bile duct into the cystic duct, and the gallbladder stores and concentrates bile. So if you have your gallbladder removed, you still can make bile. You just don't have a little sac to store it in and concentrate it in. So you only have enough basically made on demand when you eat fats and you need to emulsify them, so much as that can be stored in the bile duct and the common hepatic duct. You wouldn't have anything to store it in if you had your gallbladder removed. So what is the function of the gallbladder? You just heard me say it is to store and concentrate bile. And the purpose of bile is to emulsify fats that you've eaten from your diet. Here is another great model. It's showing you the gallbladder. I'll just abbreviate it. We can see here the right hepatic duct and the left hepatic duct forming the common hepatic duct. We can see the cystic duct. On the back side of this model, we would see the common bile duct or just bile duct. Piercing through, we can kind of see it if you look carefully. You can see that common bile duct piercing through the pancreas, and we can see the pancreatic duct merging with it to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla. Here again is the duodenum. And we can see the plicae circularis. Okay. Okay, this is a model of this small intestine mucosa, and The epithelial cells that you are seeing here are simple columnar cells. Just to remind you from your histology discussion, this entire structure that you are seeing, this finger-like extension, is called a villus. So here's a villus. There are 3 villi. Okay, and then if we look over here by number 6, we can actually see the individual simple columnar cells with the blue nuclei inside of them. Nuclei are traditionally not blue. It's just what they painted it. So the entire length would be the mucosa. And I just told you simple columnar epithelium. This invagination here, number 2, is an intestinal crypt, also called a crypt of Lieberkühn, if you want to go back to remember your digestive system lecture. This muscle, number 4, let me use a different color, is your Muscularis Mucosae. And then this white structure that you're seeing extending through a villus is a lacteal. And a lacteal, I'll remind you, is a lymphatic vessel, and its job is to collect the fatty chyle from your digestive tract. So it's chyle, not to be confused with chyme. And then down here we see capillaries, which are important for absorption of other nutrients. Layer B is the submucosa, and layer C is showing you the muscularis externi. I'll remind you the internal layer is the circular layer, and the outer layer is the longitudinal. And then D would be the serosa, which would be visceral peritoneum. So where it says serosa, you think visceral peritoneum. And here is the same model that's not labeled. This blue inset here is trying to show you what you would find in those intestinal crypt. And from your lecture, I told you that you would find enteroendocrine glands, which are cells that are releasing hormones. And you learned about cholecystokinin being released, for example. Gastrin came from the gastric pits. Cholecystokinin, I told you about secretin, just to name a few from your lecture. All right, moving back to the liver, we're looking at the underside of the liver. The left lobe, so think of this as it is your right and your left. The right is the largest lobe. And then the left lobe actually extends all the way over to roughly the level of your left nipple. The quadrate is called that because it looks like it is almost a perfect square or rectangle. So that's the quadrate. And then this kind of oblique one, not a perfect rectangle, is the caudate. Here's our gallbladder. We learned about the cystic duct. Here would be the right hepatic duct. And we're seeing a little bit of the left hepatic duct. Here's the hepatic artery, which is bringing blood to the liver, bringing nutrition and oxygen to the hepatocytes. And then we see the portal vein. That should be called hepatic portal vein. In a previous discussion, when you learned about vessels, this was colored purple. So I'm going to try and color it purple. Well, that didn't work. In other models, it was colored purple because it showed you that it was relatively oxygen poor blood, but they wanted you to have a different color for it so that you can distinguish it from the hepatic vein that is not shown to you in this model, and the hepatic vein dumps into the inferior vena cava. So here is another model where we can see the hepatic portal vein. We can see the inferior vena cava. We can see the gallbladder, I'm just abbreviating, with the cystic duct. And then this would be the left lobe. This would be the right lobe. So this would be the right hepatic duct, and this would be the left hepatic duct, which form the common hepatic duct, which is number 18 there. And then the cystic duct joins, and then this would be the bile duct. In red, we see the hepatic artery. And this region in general, where we see these structures coming in and out of the liver, is called the porta hepatis. I point it out because sometimes on my lecture exam, I ask a question about what structures do you find in the porta hepatis. And then here is your falciform ligament. A remnant, of course, of a fetal structure. Okay. Well, wrapped up in the falciform ligament would be the ligamentum teres. So that's why I'm saying it's a remnant of a fetal structure. Okay, this is a model of a histological specimen of a lobule in the liver, and we see a branch of the hepatic portal vein, a branch of the hepatic artery, and a branch of the bile duct, and that's together, all three of those are called a portal triad. And we can see the blood coming from the digestive system, like your stomach and your small intestine and large intestine, and they're going through these hepatic sinusoids. And as this blood percolates by the hepatocytes, all of these cells here, they're detoxifying your blood. And it's also these cells that are making bile, and that bile is flowing through this canaliculus into this branch of the canaliculus called the bile ductule. And then blood that is detoxified and can now go back to the main circulation dumps through the central vein. So it's saying that this is 1/4 of it. There'd be the rest of this half of the lobule, and then on the other side. So we're only seeing 1/4 of this central vein. Here again is the same model, not labeled, so you can actually test your knowledge. Up here in the background, you can see the hexagonal shape of the liver lobules with the central vein in the center. Okay, here it is again, labeled. And here it is again, where you can see, like I said, those hexagonal structures called a lobule. The central vein. And then over here, we can see the portal triad. There's a red, a purple, and a green structure, so the portal triad. Now, I am still missing. Let me add a few more slides because I am missing some added pictures. Just give me a moment. and I will get them. Where did I put them? Oh, here we are. Okay, so let me grab these. And I'll point them out to you. There we go. So on your hit list, we're talking about mesentery, and this black arrow is pointing to the mesentery proper. And remember, mesentery is a double layer of peritoneum, and you learn about that more in your digestive system lecture. And the, oh, sorry. Let me correct that. That was a mistake. Wrong slide. So this arrow is pointing to the greater omentum. And it's taken off on the right side of this model, but the greater omentum would also, it's like an apron of mesentery. The lesser omentum, you can't really see it. We don't really have a model of it, but the lesser omentum would be going from the lesser curvature of the stomach up to basically the porta hepatis of the liver. So you can't see it on the model because it would be behind the liver. And again, this is the left lobe of the liver, and here's the right. And this structure here that would have the ligamentum teres wrapped up in it is called the falciform ligament. Which is also a mesentery that you learned about in your digestive system lecture. Now this slide where I'm pointing here with this green arrow is the mesentery proper. And it's all, you can see this is all small intestine, so all jejunum and ileum. And what the person is basically doing is uncoiling all the small intestines so that you can see this fan-like appearance of the mesentery proper. Okay. Moving on to your integument system hit list. I think I have addressed everything on your digestive system hit list. Let me go back up to your integument. There it is. Not much to go over for your integument. Here is one model of skin. It's showing you on this part here, it's showing you thick skin. And I know that because here we see the stratum lucidum, this transparent part, and notice that it's not on the right hand side of this model. So in the right hand side you're seeing thin skin. And notice that there aren't any hair follicles or the actual hairs that you're seeing on the left side, because you should not have hair follicles in your thick skin, which would be on the palms of your hands and on the soles of your feet. Here are Meissner's corpuscles, important for tactile stimulation, touch. Pacinian corpuscle, you should also know that. It's not on your hit list, but please add it. Pacinian corpuscles are for deep pressure and vibration pressure. We see this small coiled true sweat gland that comes all the way up through the layers of your epidermis, and that is an eccrine gland, also known as a true sweat gland. This larger one that is all coiled and empties into the hair follicle is an apocrine gland, and that is secretes sweat, but it's sweat with an odor because of where we find it in the axillary fossa, inguinal region, and we talked about that, or I talked about it in chapter 5, your integument system. Here is the erector pili muscle. We also see that in your histology. This cauliflower-shaped appearance gland that you're seeing here is a sebaceous gland. Releases sebum, a very oily secretion. And let's see, down here is the dermis. And down here would be the hypodermis, which is technically not part of the integument system, but because of its proximity, we still learn about it at the same time. And then over here, we see the stratum basale, which is shown here in orange. Then we see the spinosum and then the granulosum. And then in thick skin, we see stratum lucidum. And then the thickest of them all in thick skin is the stratum corneum. Here is another skin model, just showing you a different appearance. Notice that true sweat glands do not empty into hair follicles. And this time over here, you're seeing thick skin on the right side. This model is actually it's not incorrect. It looks like it is. Here's your apocrine sweat gland, and it is dumping into a hair follicle. It's just that it's on the actual hair follicle is on the other side of this model. Let's see, thick skin, we see the stratum lucidum. Lamellated corpuscle is also known as a Pacinian. Please add that to your list. It's for deep pressure and vibration. These little tiny receptors here are tactile corpuscles, also known as Meissners, which is on your hit list already. Okay. And then the cauliflower appearance we see here of the sebaceous gland. And here's one intact over here in this model. And then the erector pili we can see right there and right there. And again, another model of the skin. We're seeing sebaceous gland for A. We're seeing erector pili muscle here and here. Again, it's all labeled for you. We see Meissner's corpuscle, also known as a tactile corpuscle. Down here we see Pacinian corpuscle, also known as lamellated. We see the hair bulb, hair follicle, and the shaft of the hair. So here's the follicle. This is the hair papilla. These little extensions are dermal papilla. I'm pointing that out because it's in your histology packet, and I talked about that. And finally, here is another model that's not labeled. Here is your eccrine sweat gland, your sebaceous gland, your apocrine, your Pacinian corpuscle, your Meissners, your erector pili, and you get the idea. Okay, that's the end of our digestive system and and integument system.